Hey guys, my name's Ben Sinclair, and today in this video we'll be looking at my project, the CORNERBLOCK. It's a commercial passive house certified project on the Gold Coast in Australia, and I want to share with you three main things in the video. One, why did we choose passive house as our performance standard for building the building? Looking at some of the costs associated with it and some of the areas where we saved some money, and also the lessons that we learnt. There's no point doing these sort of projects unless we can provide that back to the community so that they can go and do these projects themselves. The first point I want to discuss is what led us to using passive house as our performance standard. The journey actually started with us trying to solve an architectural aesthetic issue around the size of the outdoor air conditioning units that you'd typically install in this commercial space that we've built. The typical units are large, bulky and heavy, and we were struggling to find a location to actually place them. Once we learned about passive house and the reduction in cooling loads needed, we quickly realised that the capital equipment required for heating and cooling the space was going to be drastically reduced in size, and allowed us to place those units in locations we wouldn't have been able to otherwise and hide them with screening, achieving our architectural aesthetic result. One of our other main focuses was to try and not push the problem around high energy costs and consumption back onto the tenant. As this is a commercial space compared to a lot of residential solutions, the tenant is the one that wears the cost of the energy consumption, and it's something that a lot of building owners or developers don't consider as part of their design. Passive house allows us to think about the long-term costs for the tenant and reducing that for their benefit. In Australia, as our commercial urban developments start to become high performing, there's standards and ratings that we need to achieve. One of those is Neighbours. And to give you an example, it used to be 2,000 square metres, you had to display a Neighbours rating, which is essentially the energy consumption for that space. That then got reduced to 1,000 square metres. So as we were thinking about the longevity of this building, we wanted to make sure that the building would comply and exceed the standards that government regulatory bodies would impose on these sort of buildings into the future, without us coming back and retrofitting anything to achieve those standards. We feel quite confident that passive house will allow us to achieve these standards for 30 years or more to come. With any passive house project, it's important to look at the project as a whole when it comes to the costing. You'll find many times when one component of a building may cost double or triple what a non-passive house solution would. But what you will find is that the money that you spend in one area, you'll save in another area. Throughout our project, we found a lot of times we saved hundreds of $1,000s on the capital cost of the air conditioning that had to be offset against the extra expense in the windows and door system that we used. Choosing a passive house consultant to be involved in the project right from the start is very important. We only learnt about passive house halfway through our design process. Fortunately for us, we had chosen the core building materials at the start that allowed us to easily achieve passive house. If this wasn't the case, it could have been quite unfeasible for us to proceed with passive house as a standard if we didn't have the consultant engaged right at the start. Passive house modelling can also highlight some paradoxes that you wouldn't normally see without doing the modelling. So in our building, we had a thermal bridge situation that, with logic, should have been an issue and something that we wouldn't have been able to overcome. Through proper thermal bridge modelling, we realised it wasn't an issue, and it meant that we could carry on with our construction process rather than modifying and adapting it on site. Because of the scientific approach with passive house modelling, You know the outcome of the building before you even start. As long as you do spend the time in the design phase, you can ensure that you'll achieve the performance outcomes once the building's complete. Obviously there's a lot of detail that needs to go into the construction of the building, but knowing how to do it and what materials to use to achieve that performance outcome is a great thing at the start of the project. Now that we've completed the project, we're enjoying the awesome benefits of Passive House. The real world outcome is now in its built form and we can actually touch and feel it. To learn more about CORNERBLOCK and to get inspiration for your own project, please visit our website.